The stars of Sector 592 shone quietly across the dark sky, far from the busy centers of the galaxy. It was a cold and empty part of space, almost forgotten. But tonight, it held something important. The mighty Zorvan fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, was stranded there, broken and silent. The Zorvans were not used to weakness. Their ships were large and sharp like blades floating in the black. Every one of their vessels had thick armor and deadly weapons. They believed they were untouchable, but now all 20 ships drifted without power, caught in a strange, invisible storm. A cosmic anomaly had hit them without warning. One moment, their hyperdrives were humming. The next, they were dead, burned out by a wave of unknown energy. Even the Zorvans' best engineers couldn't explain it. The storm had passed, but it had left behind silence, fear, and broken machines. Inside the command ship, the ZSS Varkal, Admiral Therak Val stood on the bridge. He was tall, with silver skin and deep black eyes that reflected the blinking lights of failing systems. Around him, officers moved quickly, speaking in low, tense voices. The power grid was down to 30%. Food supplies were dropping. Oxygen was stable, but it wouldn't last forever. "We cannot call for help," said one of the technicians. "The storm disrupted our long-range transmitters. Only a short signal got out, if anything." Therak clenched his jaw. Then someone, "Better have heard it," he growled. "We are Zorvans. We do not beg, but we will not die floating in silence." He did not want to admit it, but their situation was dire. They had no hyperdrive, no proper communication, and no allies in this part of space. The Zorvans were known to be proud and distant. They had always believed in power, not friendship. Now that belief was being tested. Days passed. The fleet grew colder. The lights dimmed. Engines failed, one by one. A few officers suggested using escape pods. Others asked if they should send out scouts in smaller ships. But all ideas came with risk. Pirates might be nearby. Worse, some species might take pleasure in watching the mighty Zorvans suffer. Then something changed. On the 6th day, a quiet alarm rang through the control room of the Varkal. The sensors had picked up movement. Unknown vessels entering the sector, an officer reported. Therak stepped forward. "Pirates?" he asked. "No, not pirates," the officer said, blinking in surprise. "It's human ships." The room fell silent. "Humans?" Therak repeated. "What are they doing here?" The Zorvans didn't think much of humans. They were newcomers to the galactic stage, curious, loud, and far too optimistic. Their technology was decent, but nowhere near Zorvan standards. In Zorvan history books, humans were mentioned as a young species with dangerous confidence. Yet here they were, heading straight for the broken fleet. A message came through. It was clear, friendly, and direct. "This is Admiral Sarah Blake of the United Nations Galactic Fleet. We received your distress signal. We are here to help." Some Zorvan officers scoffed. "Help? From humans? We don't need them." Therak raised a hand. "We will not accept pity," he said. "But we also will not die from arrogance. Open a channel." A moment later, a screen flickered to life. On it appeared a human woman in uniform. Her hair was tied back, her expression calm and serious. "This is Admiral Therak of the Zorvan Empire," he said firmly. "We are in need of temporary assistance." Sarah Blake nodded once. "Understood. We're here to provide power, supplies, and repair support. No politics, just survival." Therak narrowed his eyes. "And why would humans risk their ships to help us?" Blake gave a small smile. "Because that's what we do." Before Therak could reply, the human fleet began to move. Smaller ships broke away and headed toward the nearest Zorvan vessels. Drones zipped ahead, scanning the damage. Repair teams floated over in suits, ready to assist. The Zorvans watched with mixed feelings: suspicion, shame, and confusion. Humans didn't seem interested in mockery or power. They were just helping. On the Varkal, the lights began to brighten as human engineers connected temporary power cells. One Zorvan officer stared at the systems with disbelief. "They've stabilized the core temperature," she whispered. In less than an hour. Another added, and they're sharing food packets and oxygen filters. They brought enough for all 20 ships. Therak watched in silence. This was not how he imagined humans. He expected loud talk, pride, maybe even tricks. Instead, he saw teamwork, focus, and skill. Later that night, he stood on the bridge looking out into space. Human ships floated beside his own like guardians. The stars still shone, but they no longer felt cold. One of his officers stepped up, beside him. "What do we do now, Admiral?" Therak took a deep breath. "We let them help. For now. And we watch. Carefully." The Zorvans were stranded. Their pride had taken a hit. But deep inside, something was beginning to shift. They were learning that humanity, the species they had once dismissed, might be far more powerful than they appeared. The cold dark of space slowly faded as power returned to the Zorvan fleet. Lights flickered on. Life support systems began to hum again. The sharp, quiet fear in the hearts of the Zorvan crew members started to ease, but not completely. The humans had arrived quickly, and they were not wasting time. Admiral Sarah Blake stood in the command room of her ship, the UNS Resolute. Her eyes were fixed on the screen showing the Zorvan fleet. Even from here, she could see how badly damaged they were. Burnt-out engines, bent hulls, flickering signals. It was clear the storm had almost killed them. But what Sarah found most strange was the silence from the Zorvans. They accepted help, yes, but just barely. Their voices were cold, their eyes were proud. No thanks, no greetings, just quiet orders and watchful stares. Still, Sarah didn't care about their pride. She had a job to do. "Team Alpha," she said into her comm. "Move to the next ship. Give them battery packs and oxygen filters. Team Bravo, check their core engines. Work fast, but stay polite." "Aye, Admiral," came the reply. Back on the ZSS Varkal, Admiral Therak Val watched the human teams carefully. The humans moved, with speed and skill. They floated between ships in magnetic suits, carried heavy gear, and worked together without shouting or confusion. One young Zorvan officer stepped close to Therak. "Sir, the humans have repaired our water recyclers. It took them only 2 hours." Therak frowned. "Did they install Zorvan parts?" "No, sir, their own tech. But it's working well." Therak said nothing. He turned back to the window and watched a human drone scan the side of their hull. Pride twisted in his chest like a blade. How had this happened? The Zorvans were powerful, proud, and ancient. The humans were new, eager, and wild. Yet here they were, saving the Zorvans. On the human side, things were different. In the Resolute's repair bay, Engineer Mason Carter grinned as he looked at the strange Zorvan tools. "These guys have crazy tech," he said to his teammate Letinisha Patel. "It's advanced but super complex. They use layered plasma systems, we use magnetic pulse drives. Honestly, their designs are kind of overbuilt." "Yeah," Aisha replied, tapping a screen. "Impressive, but not efficient. It's like they made everything hard on purpose." They shared a laugh. The humans weren't trying to be disrespectful, they were just amazed. Helping the Zorvans was a huge deal. Few humans had even seen a Zorvan ship up close. Now they were repairing one. But not all Zorvans were pleased. In the Varkal's war room, a group of senior officers met with Admiral Therak. "This is dangerous," one said. "Humans could plant trackers or steal tech." Another added, "We should not trust them. Their help might be a trick." Therak raised a hand. "They have given food, power, and repairs. If this is a trick, it's a very costly one." The room went silent. One officer asked, "Then what do we do, Admiral?" Therak looked around. He saw fear in their eyes, but not of humans. Fear of being helpless. Fear of looking weak. "We let them help," Therak said, "but we do not forget who we are." Meanwhile, back on the Resolute, Sarah Blake received a private message from her team. "Admiral," said the voice of Captain Renzo, "we found a serious issue in the Varkal's main reactor. If it's not fixed soon, their ship could lose all power again. Can we fix it, Sarah asked. Yes, but we need permission to enter the lower core. It's restricted. The Zorvans won't let us. Sarah sighed. I'll talk to Therak. She opened a secure channel. The Zorvan Admiral's face appeared, serious and unreadable. Admiral Therak, our engineers found a reactor fault. It's bad. We need access to your core systems to fix it. Therak frowned. That section is off limits to outsiders. With respect, Sarah said calmly. If it fails, your ship could shut down completely. Your people would be at risk. We're not asking for secrets, we're trying to save lives. There was a pause. Therak didn't like this. Zorvan pride was strong, but he also knew the humans were right. You may send a small team, he said, but they will be watched. Sarah nodded. Understood. Hours later, 2 human engineers entered the Varkal's core. Zorvan guards followed them closely, watching every move. But there was no trick. The humans worked fast, explained everything they did, and fixed the problem in record time. When power returned to full strength, the Zorvan crew looked surprised, maybe even a little impressed. Back. On the Resolute, Sarah sat down with her officers. They're still proud, she said, still cold, but they're watching us. Maybe they're learning, said Mason. Maybe they'll realize we're not as small as they thought. Sarah smiled. Maybe, she said, but we're not here for respect. We're here to help. In the days that followed, more systems were repaired. More trust was built, slowly, like stone on stone. The Zorvans never said thank you, but they stopped glaring. They started asking questions. Some even nodded to their human helpers. Therak stood once again on the bridge of the Varkal. His ship was alive. His people were safe. And outside, human ships floated like quiet stars, still watching over them. He did not trust them fully. Not yet. But he had seen something in them that he had not expected. Honor, skill, and courage. Maybe humanity was more than just a young species. Maybe they were something greater. For the first time in many days, peace had returned to the Zorvan fleet. Their ships had light. Engines were warm. Systems worked again. But even though things looked better on the outside, a quiet tension remained. The Zorvans were still unsure of their human helpers, and the humans were careful not to push too hard. Admiral Therak Val stood in the main hall of the ZSS Varkal, watching a group of human engineers finish repairs on one of the inner walls. They worked quickly and spoke with calm voices. They even smiled sometimes. Therak did not understand them. Why do they help so freely? He asked his science officer, Karna. Karna shrugged. They say it's just what humans do. They help others, even when they expect nothing back. Therak frowned. No one helps for nothing. But before he could say more, a loud alarm rang across the ship. Warning. Incoming vessels detected. Officers rushed to control stations. Therak moved to the command screen. His eyes narrowed as he read the data. They're not human, said Karna, and not friendly. On the other side of space in the UNS Resolute, Admiral Sarah Blake got the same alert. She stood up fast. Report, she said. Unknown fleet entering the system. 26 ships. Configuration matches known pirate group, the Scar Lords, her officer replied. Sarah's face went cold. The Scar Lords were infamous. They were violent, cruel, and loved attacking weak targets. And they were smart enough to know when someone was vulnerable. They saw the Zorvan's distress signal, Sarah said. Now they've come to finish the job. She opened a direct channel to the Zorvan flagship. Admiral Therak, she said, we have incoming enemies. Pirates. A lot of them, Therak replied quickly. We know. They are heading straight for us. Can your ships fight? Sarah didn't hesitate. Yes, we'll engage them immediately. Therak looked away for a moment. We will join you. Some of our weapons work. We are not helpless. A minute later, the Scar fleet dropped out of light speed, black ships with red markings shaped like knives. They didn't waste time. They began firing. Bright lights filled the space around the stranded fleet. Explosions shook the silence. The battle had begun. Sarah Blake led the charge. Her smaller human ships darted between the enemy like fish avoiding a shark. They used speed, not size, to outmatch the pirates. Missiles flew. Laser beams sliced through the black. One pirate ship exploded, then another. "Push them back," Sarah shouted. "Keep moving." Back in the Zorvan fleet, Admiral Therek ordered his gunners to fire. Though some weapons were still offline, their heavy cannons launched huge plasma blasts into the enemy ranks. The Zorvan ships moved slower, but their hits were powerful. For the first time, humans and Zorvans fought side by side. In the heart of the battle, a human ship called the UNS Valor took heavy fire. Its left engine was damaged, and flames burned through its rear hull. "We need help," the Valor's captain shouted. Before Sarah could respond, a Zorvan cruiser turned sharply and moved in front of the Valor, blocking the next wave of pirate fire with its own shield. Inside the Zorvan ship, an officer turned to Therek. "We just took damage for them." Therek gave a short nod. "They've taken risks for us. Now we do the same." The pirates, confused by the strong defense, began to fall back. They had expected a broken, easy target. But instead, they found two fleets, different species, once strangers, fighting together like allies. After an hour of intense battle, the Scar Lords retreated. 3 of their ships had been destroyed. Others were badly damaged. They vanished into hyperspace. Silence returned. In both fleets, cheers broke out. In the UNS Resolute, Sarah Blake leaned back in her chair, breathing hard. "Damage report?" she asked. "Minor damage on 2 ships. No deaths. We got lucky." In the ZSS Varkal, Therek looked around the bridge. His officers were quiet, but their eyes were different now, calmer, brighter. They had seen something new today. Therek opened a channel to the human fleet. "Admiral Blake," he said, "we thank you, Sue, for your bravery." Sarah smiled. "You returned the favor, Admiral. We make a good team." Therek gave a slow nod. "Perhaps we do." Later, as repairs began again, human and Zorvan crews met on shared platforms. They talked, not just about systems and weapons, but about their homes, their people, their differences. Jokes were shared, food was passed around, walls were beginning to fall. One Zorvan technician stared at a human drone, amazed at its speed. "How did you build this?" he asked. The human laughed. "With duct tape and panic." The Zorvan didn't get the joke, but he laughed anyway. That night, Therek and Sarah spoke privately through a secure line. "You fought well," Therek said. "So did you," Sarah replied. "Your fleet still has fight in it." "We are learning," he said slowly. "Perhaps more than we expected." "Good," Sarah said, "because this galaxy is full of storms, and sometimes you need help getting through them." Therek didn't answer right away. He looked at the stars beyond his window. Maybe the humans weren't weak. Maybe they were exactly what the galaxy needed. The Scar Lords were gone, chased into the dark corners of the galaxy. But something far more important had been left behind. Trust. For the first time in Zorvan history, their warships floated beside human vessels, not as threats, but as partners. "Admiral," Therek Val walked slowly through the long corridor of the ZSS Varkal, deep in thought. His steps echoed against the smooth metal walls. The battle had changed everything, not just their survival, but how he saw the humans. He stopped in front of the viewing deck. Stars stretched across the sky, but his eyes focused on the nearest ship, the UNS Resolute, still holding position near his fleet. He did not want to admit it, but something about the humans impressed him. They were not as advanced as the Zorvans, but they were clever, brave, unpredictable, yes, but also kind in a way the Zorvans never practiced. Just then, his second-in-command, Karna, entered. "Admiral," she said softly, "human engineers request access to the inner plasma chambers of the cruiser ZSS Meldan. They believe they can increase the reactor efficiency by 40%. Therek raised an eyebrow. "They want access to our power core?" Karna nodded. "They have already shared blueprints of their upgrade plan. I checked it. It's real, and it might work." Therak turned back to the stars. Send word. Grant them access, but make sure our people work beside them. Karna blinked, surprised. Understood, Admiral. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Resolute, Admiral Sarah Blake stood in her ready room with her senior staff. A star map glowed in front of them, showing the Zorvan ships slowly moving into formation. They're beginning to trust us, she said. Lieutenant Aisha Patel grinned. Didn't think I'd ever see the day. Zorvans asking us for tech advice? That's huge. Keep it professional, Sarah replied. This is bigger than just repairs. We're building a bridge between two species. Let's not mess it up. Outside, the Windows repair drones zipped between ships. Human engineers and Zorvan technicians worked side by side. Tools clanged, wires sparked. It wasn't always smooth. Zorvan systems were different and complex, but slowly, progress was being made. In the ZSS Meldon, a human engineer named Mason Carter stood with a Zorvan counterpart, Technician Vael. The two worked on connecting a human-designed energy booster to the Zorvan's core systems. You use too many layers, Mason said with a grin. No offense, Vael frowned. Our systems are built to last centuries. Yeah, but ours are built to survive weekly explosions. Mason joked. Vael didn't laugh, but he smiled a little. Perhaps you are not as primitive as I thought. That small moment between two people from two worlds meant more than any battle. Back on the bridge of the Varkal, Admiral Therak received a surprise message. Admiral, Karna said. Admiral, Blake has invited you aboard her ship. She wishes to speak face to face. Therak's expression didn't change, but deep inside he felt something stir. Curiosity? Caution? Respect? Prepare my shuttle, he said simply. An hour later, for the first time in history, a Zorvan war admiral stepped foot on a human ship. Therak walked into the UNS Resolute with slow, measured steps. He was met by Admiral Blake and a group of officers. They saluted him with respect, not fear, not arrogance. Welcome aboard, Sarah said. We're honored. I have never stood on a human vessel, Therak said, looking around. Your design is simple. We like simple, Sarah replied. It makes things harder to break. She led him to the observation deck. There, they stood alone, stars glowing outside the large glass window. We've done good work together, Sarah said. Your people are strong, smart, but pride almost destroyed you. Therak turned slowly to her. We believed strength meant standing alone. And now? She asked. Therak was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Now I wonder how many others we could have helped, or been helped by, if we had looked beyond ourselves. Sarah gave a small nod. Then maybe this rescue was more than just repairs. Maybe it's the start of something new. The two leaders stood in silence, not needing to say more. In that quiet moment, an alliance was born. Not with papers or promises, but with understanding. That same day, something even greater happened. Zorvan engineers offered to share one of their shielding upgrades with the humans. In return, human programmers installed their adaptive AI systems into Zorvan computers. Technology, knowledge, respect. This was how peace began. Later, as the human fleet prepared to leave, messages were exchanged across all ships. Friendly, even, grateful words. A few human officers were even invited onto Zorvan ships for dinner, an offer no outsider had ever received. Inside her office, Admiral Sarah Blake wrote her final report. The Zorvans were proud, cold, and distant. But we reached them, not through weapons but through action. When they needed help, we gave it. When they doubted us, we showed them trust. And when danger came, we stood beside them. In return, they opened their minds and their hearts. Perhaps this is the first true alliance of many. On the ZSS Varkal, Admiral Therak stood before his crew. We were broken, we were proud, we were afraid. But the humans came, not to conquer, but to lift us up. From this day forward, we will remember what they did. And if they ever need us, we will answer. As the two fleets prepared for their next missions, they did not fly alone. They flew as allies. The Zorvan fleet was alive again, engines repaired, weapons restored, and systems stronger than before. But just as the new alliance with humans began to feel safe, the galaxy decided to test them once more. It started with a strange reading. On the sensors of the ZSS Varkal, "Admiral Therak," said Karna, his science officer, "there's something wrong in this sector. Space itself is shifting." Therak frowned and walked over to the screen. "Shifting?" Karna nodded, tapping fast on the console. "There's a gravitational pulse coming from a nearby region. It's building energy fast. I believe it's a space-time tear forming. If it continues, it could collapse into a black hole." Therak's eyes widened slightly. "A black hole would destroy everything in the sector, including the fleet. Can we move?" he asked quickly. Karna looked unsure. "We repaired the hyperdrives, but they're still unstable. If we try to jump now, some ships could tear apart." Therak's voice turned sharp. "Then we need options. Fast." Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Resolute, Admiral Sarah Blake received the same alert. Her team had picked up the same gravitational waves. "We have a crisis," said Aisha Patel, her science officer. "We're sitting near the edge of a forming black hole. It's still early, but if it grows, it'll pull us all in." Sarah's face tightened. "What are our options?" "We can jump out safely," Aisha said. "Our ships are ready." Sarah nodded slowly. "But the Zorvans aren't." The room fell silent. The human fleet had a choice. Leave now and survive, or stay and risk being pulled into destruction. "We're not leaving them," Sarah said firmly. "We didn't come all this way just to run at the first sign of danger." She opened a direct channel to the ZSS Varkal. Therak's face appeared on screen. His expression was tense. "You received the same readings?" she asked. "Yes. We cannot escape yet," Therak replied. "If the tear expands, we will be lost." Sarah leaned forward. "I have a plan, but it requires complete trust." Therak raised an eyebrow. "What kind of plan?" "We can fire a synchronized graviton, pulse from our fleet, combined with your ship's plasma cores. It could seal the tear before it becomes unstable, but it's dangerous. If we misfire, we make it worse." Therak was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You would risk your fleet to help us again?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, but only if you trust us completely. No second guessing. We do this together, or not at all." Therak stood still. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, to everyone's surprise, he said, "Give us the pulse plan. We will sync with your system." Back in the R, human ship, cheers erupted. The Alliance was about to face its first true test. Over the next few hours, both fleets worked non-stop. Human and Zorvan technicians shared codes, energy models, and timing sequences. Drones flew between ships, carrying data chips and power relays. Every second counted. In the ZSS Meldon, a Zorvan captain called out, "Timing chip installed!" From the UNS Horizon, a human voice replied, "Reading your signal, it's stable." At the center of it all, Therak and Sarah remained in constant contact. "This is the most sensitive operation I've ever led," Sarah admitted. "Same here," Therak replied. "And I have seen 2 Star Wars." Sarah smiled. "Let's not make this our last." Finally, everything was ready. 20 Zorvan ships and 10 human ships were perfectly positioned around the energy tear. They looked like stars in formation, surrounding a deep, glowing hole in space. The tear shimmered with dark energy, pulling at nearby objects. On board the Resolute, Isha Patel looked at the countdown. "Graviton pulse in 60 seconds. Let's do this," Sarah said, eyes sharp. The countdown began. 60 seconds, 40 seconds, 20 seconds. Therak stood on his bridge looking at the glowing tear outside his window. "This is madness," Karna whispered. "No," Therak said softly. "This is hope." Seconds. 3, 2, 1. Fire. All ships released their energy at the same moment. Bright beams of graviton energy and plasma shot toward the center. The space tear reacted violently, shaking, roaring, folding, light bent, stars flickered. Time itself seemed to twist. For a terrifying moment, no one knew what would happen. Then, silence. The tear closed. The energy vanished. The stars returned to normal. The danger was gone. Cheers echoed through both fleets. In the UNS Resolute, Sarah Blake stood up, smiling. We did it. In the ZSS Varkal, Therak stared at the calm screen, then nodded slowly. Mission complete, Karna whispered. Therak opened a channel. Sarah's face appeared, proud and bright. You took a risk, he said. You trusted us, she replied. Therak gave the smallest smile. Perhaps humans are not just helpers. Perhaps you are protectors too. We protect those who stand with us, Sarah said. Now so do you. Later, as the two fleets drifted quietly under the stars, messages were exchanged. Not just military reports, but letters of friendship, stories, and even jokes. One human ship played a song through open comms. A Zorvan cruiser responded by flashing its running lights in rhythm. It wasn't just an alliance now, it was a bond, a connection built in fire, strengthened in crisis, and sealed in trust. The universe was still full of danger. But now, the Zorvans and humans knew one thing for sure. They would never face it alone again. The Zorvan fleet and the human ships floated together in the quiet of space, surrounded by the stars. The danger had passed. The black hole was no longer a threat, and both fleets were alive. But as they drifted, something even more important was beginning. Trust had grown between the two species, not just in the heat of battle, but in moments like this, when they stood side by side, sharing stories, exchanging knowledge, and simply being together. Admiral Sarah Blake stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute, looking at the peaceful scene outside. The Zorvan ships were still in formation around her fleet, their sleek dark shapes cutting through the stars. They're not just allies anymore, Isha Patel said, her voice filled with quiet admiration. They're our friends. Sarah nodded, her eyes softening. I never imagined we'd be here, facing this kind of challenge or forming this kind of bond. It's incredible. What now? Aisha asked. Sarah paused for a moment, deep in thought. Now, we continue. There's still much to do. We need to get them home, and we need to make sure this alliance stays strong. On the ZSS Varkal, Admiral Therak Val was having a similar moment. He stood in front of a large viewport, looking at the stars beyond. It had been a long journey, from pride to fear to cooperation. He never expected to find himself here, not just surviving but thriving alongside humans. The door behind him opened. Admiral, Karna said, stepping inside. We have messages from the fleet. A new mission has been proposed. Therak turned slowly. A new mission? Yes. The human fleet is offering to escort us back to Zorvan space. It's a dangerous path through pirate-controlled systems. They believe the journey is safer with us together. Therak didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze back to the stars. The humans truly do not fear danger, Karna continued. They trust us. We trust them, Therak corrected quietly. And they trust us in return. Maybe it's time we accepted that. Karna looked at him, unsure at first, but then nodded. I think you're right, Admiral. We'll need to prepare, Therak said. It's time to move. The next day, the two fleets began their journey toward Zorvan space, moving cautiously through the sector. As they traveled, the crews of both the Zorvans and the humans continued to work side by side. They shared resources, repairs, and knowledge, learning more from each other with every passing hour. On the UNS Resolute, Sarah Blake's mind often wandered back to the mission. The Zorvans, once proud and cold, had become reliable partners. They still carried their old pride, but now it was paired with something new: humility. In their command rooms, officers from both sides discussed strategies together. They made decisions together. And sometimes, when the pressure was too much, they shared a laugh. Meanwhile, back on the ZSS Varkal, Therak watched his crew interact with the humans. They had once treated the human race with disdain, seeing them as too new, too eager. But now they worked together in harmony. It wasn't just the technology they had shared, it was the understanding that had grown between them. In a quiet moment, Theric found himself speaking with Captain Viel. "We were taught never to rely on others," Theric said. Viel looked up. "And now?" Theric sighed. "Now, I see the strength in that kind of bond. Humanity has something we don't always have: trust." The journey was not easy. The path to Zorvan space was filled with dangers. Pirate fleets attacked. Space anomalies threatened to tear apart entire ships. But through it all, the humans and the Zorvans remained united. The first time they faced a pirate attack, the two fleets worked in perfect sync. Zorvan warships used their heavy cannons, while human ships employed their speed and agility. The pirate fleet didn't stand a chance. Later, when a space storm caused electrical surges throughout both fleets, the humans and Zorvans worked together to stabilize the ships, sharing their best engineering skills and saving lives in the process. One day, as they approached Zorvan space, the Zorvan fleet began to slow. A large asteroid belt lay ahead, blocking their direct path. "We'll need to navigate through the belt carefully," Karna said. "Our engines are strong, but we don't have time to waste." "Let the humans handle it," Theric said. "What do you mean?" Karna asked, confused. "I've seen how they work in tight situations. Let's put their agility to use." Theric opened a secure line to Admiral Blake. "We're facing a tight path ahead," Theric said. "I suggest we let your ships take the lead." Sarah smiled. "Sounds like a plan, Admiral. We'll lead you through the belt." As the human ships moved ahead, weaving through the asteroid field with incredible precision, the Zorvans watched, in awe. The humans were fearless, navigating through the tight spaces and avoiding the danger with calm skill. After safely passing through the asteroid belt, Theric sent a message to Sarah Blake. "You were right," Theric said, his voice filled with quiet respect. "You humans are resourceful, and you're not so bad yourself," Sarah replied with a laugh. Finally, after a long journey, the two fleets reached the outer edge of Zorvan space. As they moved closer to Zorvan homeworld, Theric knew this moment marked the end of one chapter, and the beginning of another. "You've done more than help us," Theric said, looking out the window at the human ships. "You've changed us, and I think we've changed you too." Sarah Blake stood beside him. "It's not about changing each other. It's about learning to stand together. That's what makes us strong." The fleets prepared to part ways, but this time the farewell was different. The Zorvans no longer saw the humans as outsiders or strangers. They were allies, friends, partners. "We won't forget what you've done for us," Theric said. Sarah nodded. "And we'll be here, if you ever need us again." As the two fleets parted ways, Sarah Blake stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute looking at the stars. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but now, humanity had proven something. No matter the size of the enemy, no matter the strength of the storm, they could stand together, and together they were unstoppable.